Do you remember the last time you told a lie? Most likely wasn't that long ago. In fact, according to research by psychologist Jerry Jellison, the average person could lie about 200 times a day. Regardless, we're still rather ineffective at recognizing other people's lies. This can often be due to it being difficult to fully understand what somebody is trying to communicate, as it's quite difficult to concentrate on both verbal and nonverbal, body language in other words, aspects of communication. Is someone lying because they can't maintain eye contact with you? Well, not necessarily. Perhaps this is due to a lack of social confidence, manners, self-esteem, etc. You can't exactly tell just from this alone. Despite that being a potential clue for somebody lying, the key is to identify multiple of these clues at once, that is, clusters, as the authors of Spy the Lie describe them. Today, you'll learn precisely how these former CIA officers detected deception and how you can apply it to your own personal life, but brace yourself, as you may not actually be prepared for the truth in some cases. First, it's important to note why else we might be ineffective in detecting deception. One of the most notable reasons is bias. Unfortunately, we usually can't directly control our biases. If you want to know why, you can feel free to check out my video on the IAT test after this. For instance, the leader of a satanic cult in California was accused of over 60 children based solely on the accusation of one single 13-year-old girl. This cult leader denied everything. Regardless, everybody was sure that this girl was telling the truth. That was until she was eventually interviewed by one of the authors, where she admitted that everything was completely fabricated. Why did everyone believe the little girl, though? Obviously, a little girl seems more trustworthy and innocent than a satanic cult leader, and so everyone's perspectives were skewed, causing everyone to completely miss her lie. Don't underestimate the influence of biases on your decision making. Liars will frequently use our own biases against us by imitating truthful behavior, essentially behavior that we associate with honest individuals, in order to slip their lies through our defenses. For example, liars will often add in information that they know we'll feel is reasonable. Let's say a teacher is accusing a student of cheating on an exam. Perhaps they respond with, "I'm a very honest person. I would never want to put my studies in jeopardy by cheating." Sounds reasonable. Perhaps you might even find yourself responding in this manner too. We're naturally biased to believe people, we look for reasons to believe people, and often these reasons will be provided to us. This problem can be avoided by simply ignoring truthful behavior altogether when trying to determine if someone is deceiving us. The question at hand is not whether the student would jeopardize their studies, but rather whether or not they have cheated. However, one should still respond to the liar in this situation by acknowledging what they said, such as, "Yes, I've heard you care deeply about your studies," before asking, "What happened during that exam?" We'll discuss why this is very important later. Furthermore, liars will often try to avoid lying bluntly by either not answering the question directly or perhaps not even answering at all. Liars will often skip over details that would often compromise them, lies of omission. A good way to identify this behavior is by listening for overuse in vague words such as basically, usually, mostly, probably, etc. For instance, if a husband cheated while on a business trip, when asked what he did on the business trip, he may respond with, "I mostly just worked and stayed in the hotel room." In addition to this, if a liar feels cornered, they will often try to buy more time by asking for the question to be repeated or rephrased, claiming that they don't understand or they did not hear.
Testimony that Defendant's Exhibit 512 reflects damage to the penthouse 5, that occurred during the December 15th, 2015 incident, right?
I'm just not sure from which incident this is a picture of, since I'm only looking at
Even though your counsel was asking you questions about December 15th, 2015, and then admitted this picture into evidence?
Again,
in relation to that incident.
Sorry, go ahead.
In relation to that incident on December 15th, 2015. This exhibit, Defendant's Exhibit, you are the defendant, number 512, was admitted into evidence in this court. You testified that this was the result of damage that occurred on December 15th, 2015. Yes or no?
I just need to orient myself because I'm just looking at a picture of a partial picture of a
Ms. Hurd,
floor,
you didn't just
so
look
I
at a
can't.
picture. You looked at your testimony.
They might even refer to earlier statements they made, such as, "I've already told you 100 times what happened." These tactics essentially allow the liar to avoid having to lie directly. The liar will often use a surplus of details to hide the lies, especially involving their own reputation. These are lies of commission. Liars will often try to increase their credibility in order to avoid the truth being revealed. For most liars, a simple lie is just not believable enough. Hence, the lie will be embellished with many additional details to make them appear more believable. For example, if you accuse someone of stealing something, perhaps they will say, "But I couldn't have stolen your wallet. I was at the gym until 9:35 and it took 17 minutes on the C train before I even got home."
That's because the video came from you, right, Ms. Hurd?
No, it did not.
You
That
edited
video
out
did
the
not
portions.
come to me.
Ms.
I mean,
Hurd,
come from me.
Ms. Hurd, you edited out the portions that made you look bad before sending it to TMC.
You're very wrong about that.
So that
if I
only
wanted to
Mr.
leak
Depp
information, I
looked
could have
bad.
done it in a more effective way, a lot sooner and a lot more.
Because you
I
knew
was
exactly
living
how to
with
do
a
that,
mountain
right?
of this evidence. If I wanted to leak it, I could have done a lot more with it.
I thought you testified earlier in this trial that you didn't know how to leak things. Right.
Yep.
Liars will also try to dress up their lie by making a swift change into very polite language. They might begin by calling you sir, or perhaps even using religion, such as "I swear to God." They'll often try very hard to convince you of their integrity as well, rather than trying to give you a very truthful answer.
You know, I made a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. But I've always told the truth.
For instance, if somebody is accused of stealing from the company, one might say, "I'm about to retire and have worked here for over a decade. I'm one of your most honest employees and have a reputation to maintain around here. Why in the world would I risk my pension by stealing something that small?" Lying can also show in physical responses as well. Having to lie raises one's stress levels inevitably, which then provokes our fight or flight instinct. This subconsciously prepares your body to face threatening situations. This can often affect things such as your skin tone, pupils, heart rate, and more, all without having much conscious control over it. Additionally, there may be an increase in activity in the hands or face. When under stress, blood is drawn away from extremities. This causes those parts of the body to itch and grow colder. Our hands then subconsciously move towards these parts of the body to scratch or rub them.
So that he finds out about the divorce filing or my intention to do so from some other source other than TMZ, which was alerted.
You slipped up there, didn't you, Ms. Hurd? You let it slip out that TMZ had been alerted to your filing of the domestic violence restraining order, didn't you?
A liar will also frequently adjust their anchor points, such as their feet and their bottom if they're sitting down to reduce anxiety. This is why the CIA uses swivel chairs when interrogating, as this will amplify these indicators. Now, being familiar with many of these indicators, if you spot one, does it mean that the individual is lying? No. As I mentioned earlier, it's key to look for clusters of these behaviors, not just one of them. At least 2 or more of these indicators. The more that are present, the more likely it is that they are to be lying. You can't just say, "His eye twitched, he must be lying." This is a terrible approach. For example, some people might just be naturally anxious, especially when being accused of doing something that they did not do. It's very natural to spot one indicator in someone telling the truth. The key is to look for clusters of them. For instance, when asking your son if he did his homework, perhaps he'll respond with something like, "Why don't you trust me? I always do my homework and I never lie to you," while also shifting his feet and avoiding eye contact. In isolation, these clues might not mean much, but put together, this can indeed mean that they are lying. It also is essential to catch these clues within 5 seconds or less of the question. Otherwise, the brain will have most likely shifted to something else, rendering the clues almost useless. Now, if you remember earlier, I mentioned why it was very important to still articulate acknowledgement of someone claiming their integrity. This is because you want your suspect to remain neutral. Furthermore, you should not ask overly complicated or lengthy questions. It will simply give your subject more time to prepare the lies. Keep the questions very short and straightforward. Then, you should also try to remain calm and non-confrontational. You should also try not to make the liar repeat their lies by asking them the same question, as this will make them more uncomfortable. If you happen to identify some kind of logical inconsistency in their narrative and instantly bring it up, this person will become even more cautious and less likely to cooperate. Let them keep going and save this as a mental note. Simply continue probing at them in a friendly manner. Lastly, you should try probing for more information than the liar initially provides you with. One way to do this is through follow-up questions such as, "What else?" or "How do you know that's true?" You could even use bait questions such as, "Do you think your other classmates would agree with you on that?" This implies that you might follow up with other classmates, disrupting the liar's game plan. At the end of the day, it's impossible to spot every single lie due to the complexities of communication. Regardless, lie detection is indeed very possible. The key is to search for clusters of these clues that I mentioned today. And while you're asking these questions, ensure that you remain neutral and do not anger the liar. So now that you all know this, you could begin by applying this to your own life. Hopefully this will be helpful, or at least perhaps this was entertaining. If so, you can feel free to leave a like on the video and make sure to subscribe and enable notifications for more interesting content like this. With that though, have a fantastic rest of your day.
So that he finds out about the divorce filing or my intention to do so from some other source other than TMZ, which was alerted